Welcome to Spiritual Cartel's Fire in the Booth. This week I'm pleased to introduce Nikoleta, who has kindly agreed to come and share for us. Nikoleta, over to you, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Nikoleta. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. I'm a cocaine addict. My drug of no choice is alcohol and cocaine. I'm an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was raised in Alcoholics Anonymous, but I always had a soft spot for Cocaine Anonymous. I really love your fellowship. But more importantly, I think my story is really a love story with the 12 steps and with the big book and with, this possibility of awakening and being changed. My sober date is September 15 of 2006. I was born and raised in Belgrade, Serbia in 1979. I don't remember the early years, like when I was really, really little. I think now when I look back that maybe I don't remember because I was so present. Like there was really no thought. I was just like present for all the experiences. And then probably the first addiction was addiction to thinking, and I perceived life in a certain way. My dad was an alcoholic and a gambler and, the parents divorced and my very first memory that I do remember is, mom throwing him out of the house and the booze flying out of the house and dad missing for 3 days. And it brought up like tension and conflict and curiosity. I registered that, but also the body registered like this heaviness and this fear and this question mark, And, I think one of the ways that I escaped this like inability to feel a part of, even in my family, or even a part of like being Serbian or my country or my city, or others, was I would escape by reading. And I just wanted to be in somebody else's story rather than my own. So I got like really addicted to like binge watching movies and reading books and getting lost on the bus and missing my bus stops. And I look back now because everything is hindsight, right? Everything is hindsight. Like all of this came up in recovery for reflection. And it was showing some kind of insight and wisdom. Like there was a way of coping with the way I was perceiving life. And, when I was 14, I came to United States, to New York City. This was the early 90s, and my country was falling apart. And we came to visit, and we were homeless within a week. Within 10 days, we were homeless. And then we just pursued the American dream. And I'd say that the next 2 years were filled with challenges. And I think all of these experiences that I had in life shaped my perception of life and how I relate to life. And I would say somewhere in those early years, for whatever reason, my perception of life was that it was not safe and that it was painful. And that it was overwhelming and that it was hard. And I was suspicious of people. And I think in some ways I disregarded the heart. I disregarded like this ability to be vulnerable or to be honest. And the book tells us, like anyone can succeed in recovery if they have the willingness to be honest. And I think this honesty is really self-honesty, right? And, I went through homelessness and squatting in abandoned buildings and being hungry and looking for pennies on the street. This is before I ever picked up a drink or a drug. And I think all of that shaped my perceptions of life. And by the time I was 16, I lived alone in New York City supporting myself. And this is where the love story with booze and drugs really begins. Like I discovered something. Like people discover planets. They discover like continents. They discover like scientific geniuses discover really meaningful stuff. I discovered a bottle of gin. That's what I discovered. And why did I even pick up that bottle of gin? I was tight. Life was tough. I was overwhelmed. I wouldn't admit it because it was important to me how you saw me. And I wanted to get a certain reflection from others on how I'm perceived. But internally I was confused and I was lost, and I wouldn't admit it because I felt it was a sort of a weakness. And also I was curious about booze because I watched my dad drink, and I watched him be at ease when he drank, and I watched him be restless, irritable, and discontent, the best words in the book that describes us, when he was not. And I got curious. What was it about booze that was so important to him? More important than his two daughters, more important than the marriage to the woman he loved, that he married twice. My parents married twice and divorced twice. My sister's from the first marriage. I'm from the second. Same parents. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, obviously having a kid did not get him sober. No human power can relieve us of our addiction or our alcoholism, no matter how great the love. And so I worked in a restaurant that had access to booze. I took a bottle of gin. I brought it to my little studio apartment in New York City. I was 16 years old. I felt like I earned it and deserved it, and I was going to do an experiment and figure out what this is all about. And it was love at first gulp. And we often talk about, like, was I born with it? Did it develop over time? And I know everybody's story might be a little bit different, but I fell in love. I fell in love at first gulp. I was relieved of what I was already suffering from when I drank. I exhaled. The wheels of my mind stopped spinning. I could relax. All was well. I remember that. You ask normal people, you remember your first drink? They don't. They don't. My whole body responds at the memory of that first drink, because it changed the trajectory of my life and my intention. And, something in me registered, like, I want to do this, and I want to do this often, And because I loved it so much, I mixed it with a white powdery substance that helped me do more of it. It was a match made in heaven. I was by myself in New York City. I was 16 years old. The backstory is that I graduated high school by the time I was 16. I was deemed really intelligent by them. They gave me a lot of diplomas and put my name in a lot of places next to a number 1 and a number 2. And they told me I can do anything, and I was full of potential, and I was really, really liked, and I had teachers that wanted to adopt me. And I think any alcoholic knows exactly what I'm talking about, or any addict. We are so capable. We're so capable. But yet, the lower power was running my life. And while the lower power was running my life, as opposed to higher power, I was also intent on proving that there is no higher power, and that I can meet life if I only put my mind to it, and if I only try harder. After being, as an illegal immigrant in New York City and living alone from 16 and going through homelessness and all of that, I really felt, and being a valedictorian and putting myself through college and having 3-4 jobs, all of these experiences shaped what I thought that I could do and how I thought I could meet life. And I think that, it asks us in the work, like, we needed to look at our old ideas, and we need to let go of them, or the result was zero, nothing, nil. And there were certain old ideas that were shaping my idea of what I can and cannot do, whether I had power or I didn't have power, whether I was in control or not of life. and things like that. But so at 16, this dance with booze started, and for 10 years, the progression occurred, and, consequences would happen, and embarrassing moments would happen. And also there was a lot of fun, and I wanted more fun. It's so funny. The substance doesn't matter. It's like you put it in me and I just want more. I just want more. I was confused about the fact that I would get thirsty every time I drank. And the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous clearly talks about qualifying an alcoholic, that we have an allergy, an abnormal reaction to booze. I think I have an abnormal reaction to booze and cocaine, by the way. I've never experienced that kind of powerlessness in my life with these two substances separately and together. But for some reason, I always wanted to do more than others. I wanted to do it longer than others. I wanted to do it more often than others. And I wanted to do it faster than others. And it was fun until it wasn't. And the consequences, started happening. And like the bottoms would get lower. And then I would like furnish them and invite you over and pretend that this bottom was normal and there was somebody else to blame for it. I became a master at blaming others for the way I felt and the way life was treating me. And I would say, the book talks about, this is my story, my experience, strength, and hope. It says what we were like. It doesn't say what it was like. It says what I was like. What was I like before I got into recovery? And then what happened? There was like a turning point in my life, a pause. And then what am I like now? And let me tell you, the greatest compliment I've ever received in recovery was, "You're an addict?" What? Really? I couldn't have received a better compliment than that. Do you know what I mean? Because for many years, I defended my right to get loaded. I defended my right to get loaded because it was my life and I can do whatever I want. And I wouldn't admit to anyone, even to myself, that I was suffocating. I was drowning in misery and fear and inability to really connect and have meaningful, deep relationships. And it was like a cycle. It was like a Groundhog Day every single day. And any addict and any alcoholic understands what I'm talking about. And that's not the issue so much. I try to control and manage my drinking and my thinking and my life. And I try to, when the fire was on my ass, whether because of employment or a relationship I was in, or even family interventions, or even friends, pointing some things out, I tried to clean it up, but everything was fleeting. And I wasn't convinced because I didn't think that I had a problem, because I thought that if my life was different, or if I lived in California, or if I was with another man, or if I wasn't in a relationship, or if I had a different job, or if I had a raise, or if I didn't have my childhood, my life was lived in my head. I lived my life in the narrative. I wasn't present for life or life's experiences. And that last year in 2006, my sober date is in September. I think beginning of the year, I got a warning letter from my job. It was a high paying job. I was making a ton of money. I was supporting myself. I had a lot of money, so I couldn't see the damage because I was able to live this double life, so to speak, but the walls were crumbling, right? And in the beginning of that year, I received a warning letter from my job that I couldn't send messengers out to get me booze during lunch, and I shouldn't be drinking at my desk. And I think by like April, I used like a month of sick time. And I took that letter and I threw it in my boss's face and I said, I quit, because I was just self-reliant. I was so self-reliant and I just couldn't see. I couldn't see what I couldn't see. And I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see it because I didn't know how to live life without it. Alcohol and drugs allowed me to live life. And you want to take that away from me? I don't know how to live without it. It's too raw. It's too vulnerable. There's too much mental anxiety. That's why it's so hard. That's why I defended it for so long. To death's door. This is why we're so heartbreaking. We are heartbreaking. You tell me I chose to, smoke sheetrock and lint on the floor of my apartment? No. Did I choose to be embarrassed and humiliated? To break hearts of people that love me, that I love? No. We don't choose that. It was so important for me. It's so important for me to be connected to that emotional memory, or where it brought me and how much I defended it as I was dying. I only listened to my mind. I never questioned my mind. I never questioned the way I perceived myself or my life or my relationship to booze and drugs. Booze and drugs were definitely a solution that I thought that I could somehow manage and control. And the experience was that I couldn't. I couldn't. Maybe somebody else could, but I couldn't. What is my story? What is my experience? And September 14, 2006, I was getting evicted from my apartment for the third time. I was unemployed and unemployable for 6 months. I was broke. I was in debt. I haven't opened the mail. I would order food so that they could bring me booze to my doorstep. Everything was shut down. And I've tried therapy, but I lied. I told my sister she's not my sister and not to talk to me. I didn't want to face it. And you see, that's what's so heartbreaking. This is the best my mind can do. It doesn't allow me a world of possibilities. There was no hope in that hopeless state, in a way. And so on September 14, 2006, under the influence of alcohol, scraping up 99 pennies to buy a 99-cent malt, and seeing the guy at the deli look at me like I was a bum, and that kind of registering something in me. And I decided to end my life. And we have the highest rate of that. Alcoholics have the highest rate of suicide. It talks about it in the big book that many of us choose the supreme sacrifice. Supreme sacrifice is suicide. I can't live with it, and I can't live without it. I'm cornered. And on that night, as I decided to end my life, there was also a great amount of humility. I was faced with myself. Everything that stood in the way of me seeing the truth of what I was suffering from and the condition I was in has been taken from me. I had no choice but to see. And the seeing happened not from the mind. It wasn't intellectual. There was just this recognition that I was screwed. I'm screwed. And with that came this, I can't live like this anymore. And I look back now and I would say that that's the most genuine prayer I ever said. And time stopped. There was a pause. There was a pause that I've been honoring for 17 and a half years. A split-second pause that changed the trajectory of my life. I don't know what happened. I can't put it into words. That power has always been present. I wasn't present. I denied it. I denied it. The only thing that stood in the way of me and this power was my perception and my idea of it. and me believing that. And uh, I went from trying to kill myself under the influence to getting a quarter from my neighbor and going to a New York City payphone on the corner of my block and calling my sister and making sure I don't lose that one quarter until she picked up the phone so she can come and get me and take me anywhere. Nothing mattered. The only thing I knew is I can't do this anymore. And, we call it this moment of clarity and we call it grace. I would say it's fierce grace. Fierce. It's the kind that like smacks you in the face, gives you a knockout. Fierce grace. And we tend to think that this like truth and like God is like unicorn and rainbows and it's always sweet and fun. But I found it in these most painful times in my life where I was faced with myself, where I was faced with nothing but letting go. And, we call it surrender. We call it being surrendered. I didn't surrender. I was surrendered. I don't know what occurred, but from that place, from that moment, I have been carried. And anything that I needed has been put in my path. The only requirement, was to be open, willing, and honest. But I didn't do that. You know what I mean? That was present because I had this like incredible baseline of step one experience. I'm not in control. I don't know how to do this. I can't do this. I was cornered. I was cornered at last. I give up. I don't have any more moves. I don't have an ace. And it's from that place that something else was there. A power of its understanding. Because for sure I didn't understand it. And I didn't need to. I felt it. I felt safe while being confused and lost. I felt that I was being moved while not knowing what the next step was going to be. And my sister picked me up from my apartment and I never looked back and I never went back to that place and I never asked for my stuff and nothing mattered. Nothing. Zero. The mental obsession was removed. And I went into treatment and they asked me, why are you here? And I said, I don't want to die. And they handed me the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And they told me to read the first 164 pages. And I didn't understand a word I read. The only thing I got was how Bill drank and how Bill thought. Like that's everything else was Japanese. Everything else was Japanese. Who talks like this? I don't roll like this. What do they mean by this? Like, I couldn't even formulate sentences. But I had nothing better to do. I was scared. I was scared. I was scared of drinking and drugging again because I knew that I was going to drink and drug again. Because the step one experience, when fully realized in my experience, says, you will pick up. Not you shouldn't pick up, not you can't pick up, not don't be a bad girl. No, it's you will. You will. And I picked up when I didn't want to pick up and I had everything on the line and everything to lose. I picked up when I didn't think I would pick up. Talk about powerlessness. And I think that's the name of the game here. I think alcohol and drugs was the first tangible experience that I'm really not in control of life. And I've been buying this idea in my head that I needed to be in control and I needed to know every next move because really I was scared and I was full of anxiety. And I spent 4 months in this treatment in the mountains in Pennsylvania and I didn't want to leave and and they were just like, you got to go. And I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. Lock me up. Tell me when to pee, when to eat, when to go to bed. I'm okay with that. My second solution to alcoholism, my first solution to alcoholism was to end my life. My second solution to alcoholism was to lock myself up. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know what was possible, you know? And, but I got introduced to the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous and to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and people kept saying I needed to get a sponsor and I needed to pray, and I didn't believe in it and I didn't want to and I didn't understand it, but I did it. I sat there confused and lost, taking it in, and I realized today when I look back that a lot of the message oftentimes gets transmitted in other ways than mentally. The message gets transmitted. All I needed to do was show up. It's like, it's a surgery, like get on the operating table, don't play doctor, and don't get up. And watch, observe what's possible, and actually how precious and beautiful life can be, and what it can do for you, and how it can move you. And put in your path exactly what you need. But I didn't understand any of that back then. And at 4 months, they wanted me to get out of there, and I didn't want to go. And they're like, you got to go. You're ready to go. I'm like, I'm not ready to go. They're like, you're definitely ready to go because you don't want to leave treatment. So I picked a sober house in New Jersey, and I'm sitting in one of the offices of that sober house. And my office currently upstairs is where 17 years ago was my bed that I slept in as a newcomer. Not a job I wanted, not a career I looked for, not a vision I had. But 2 days after I stepped foot in this sober house, a woman was standing in front of me, and she was incredibly attractive. She had this like freedom and this confidence and this humility and this softness in her eyes, and she appeared incredibly safe. I felt safe. I trusted her. I didn't know why I trusted her. And she became my sponsor. Her name is Lena, and she's my sponsor to this day. And she told me that she's going to take me through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous as outlined in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the only thing that she asks of me is that I do that for somebody else. And I have been honoring that sacred meeting, that gift, all these years. And I fell in love with Alcoholics Anonymous. I fell in love with the possibilities. I felt the hope in the rooms. I couldn't deny that some of you guys were not just clean and sober. You were happy. I couldn't deny that some of you were totally bizarre and weird, but some of you were like awesome. And I got curious. And you know, the book says self-knowledge availed us nothing, but knowledge of self was important. Because self manifested in various ways is what defeats us. And that's the lower power. I denied the depth of my being. I always wanted to be authentic and real, and I didn't know how. And this way of life, this spiritual surgery, this like process of the 12 steps, when taken in the most sincere, genuine, and honest way, in a vulnerable way, not knowing what I'm doing, stepping into the unknown, willing to have a relationship with this power of my misunderstanding, its understanding, my misunderstanding, being willing to walk in the footsteps of those who have walked prior to me. That's been incredibly crucial. And that kind of willingness to do things I don't understand and I don't believe, that's a gift. And I see that willingness, that gift is a byproduct of understanding how much trouble I'm in. I had nothing to lose by having this experiment and getting curious, because on September 14, 2006, I should have been dead. I should have been dead. And so my eyes were opened, and I've had these experiences with the step work that I couldn't see that I was going to have the experience that I was going to have unless I was going to do it. It's so funny. It's like, you can't do it off the wall. It's not like reading the menu and eating the menu. It's two different things. It's like telling somebody what it's like to bite into an apple is not the same as me biting into an apple or feeling the after effect of that, right? I didn't get that. I didn't get that. And I'm just so grateful for this because it's been a journey really from the head to the heart. And it's been this journey of recognizing that I can question my mind and I can question the ideas that I lived by. And I can take a look at what my relationship with myself and with the higher power and with life and with people in life has been. And I can see how self-reliance failed me and how maybe I don't know. And not knowing is a better way to live. Because thinking that I know got me almost dead and broke and medically sick and destitute and like I failed. The great thing is that this has been a path of like me failing in order for something else to be allowed. You know what I mean? I needed to fail. It's a path of failure. It's been a path of failure. And, I had this like first kiss with the inventory and with the step work the first time around. And it was exactly what I needed. It met me where I was at. I was as honest as I could be. The first inventory, everything was blamed on me being drunk or high anyway. 6 and 7 were just 2 paragraphs that I read. I said the prayer, but there were these crucial moments. Like I remember coming out of the 5th step and feeling like a member of a 12-step fellowship. I couldn't deny that I could look the people in the eye. I couldn't deny that I was at perfect peace and ease. I couldn't deny that not even the last thing on my mind is to get loaded or to be numb or to escape or to run away. Do you know what I mean? I fell in love with that. I fell in love with the courage, with the willingness to go on, with the zest for more. That more, it became a substitute. It became a substitute. I thought that, I would read the book and these were like fictional characters and they were selling me something. And then I started like learning about the history of Alcoholics Anonymous. And on this very day, many, many years ago in 1935, Bill and Bob 12-stepped the guy on the bed. And I read that this morning at like 7 a.m. and there's like tears streaming down my face because these 2 guys, followed the path of the heart, which is the path of service to give to somebody else. We're here. I'm in England, with my friends who speak my language. Which language? The language of the heart. Like, what? Talk about being mind blown. Did they think that in 1935 on June 28th when they walked into the Akron hospital to see if they can like carry the message to somebody? And now, Nikoleta looks at some pictures in clubhouses of like 2 guys standing over another guy over the bed. Oh my God, that's a real story. These people have names, it talks about like all the way in the back of the big book, there's like a medical, there's like religious and medical views on alcoholism. And there's one little line all the way in the back that says that, the psychiatrist's job is to allow that which is under the guise of AA, that which is deep within us can flourish. I lived my life from the neck up, and it resulted in a lot of anxiety, a lot of mental anxiety, a lot of fear, and not really living in the present moment. It was a failed system. And because it was a failed system, it created a lot of suffering and pain, and I needed to escape it with booze and drugs. I discovered that actually, not only is it a failed system, but it's a dishonest system. Life has pointed to me through alcoholism, which is my teaching, which is what brought me to truth, is that there is a place deep within me that I can find safety and comfort in, that all is well, that it's okay to be uncertain, that it's okay not to know, that it's okay to meet life and each moment in a fresh way, whatever comes, to allow life to be life, even when it gets lifey. I slept 3 hours last night. Couldn't sleep. I had heartburn, a couple of things going on. I pray. I tried to pray. I tried to sit quietly. I was restless, man. And at one point at 5 a.m, I said, all right, Nick, you ain't sleeping tonight. You're not sleeping tonight. Just accept it, allow it, and see where it goes. I came to work this morning. I worked. I'm like, my head is narrative is like, how the hell am I going to do this speaking commitment? I'm going to fall asleep, or something like that. You know what I mean? And, but I'm like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm okay. Everything is okay. I can meet life on life's terms. I think this is what successful living is. I can move, this honesty, this truth will set me free, has shown it, and it's been evident to me. I mean, just look at us making amends. Just look at the process of the amends, man. You don't know how heavy you are until you do your amends. And then you're walking light. And you didn't even know the baggage you were carrying around. No wonder I was uncomfortable in my own skin. No wonder I was restless and irritable and discontent. No wonder I could never be in the present moment. No wonder, because I was so wrapped up in the head of the next moment. What was or what will be. You know what I mean? Common sense became uncommon sense. Just the things that used to be important are not so important. Connecting to you and being vulnerable and telling my truth and being okay with it, that became more important, And the game changer for me, and I'm going to try to wrap it up, the game changer over the last 17 and a half years has really been service. When I met my sponsor, I had a little over 4 months sober. She put me right through the work. She gave me 2 weeks to write that inventory, 3 weeks to write inventory. We had a 5th-step book. I was not to book anything else on that day. We sat down early in the morning. She had created a safe space for me to just verbalize all of these things that have been floating in my head. I had an opportunity to look at my relationship and to question the way I have moved in life and with what ideas I moved in life and how I showed up and what I assumed and what I expected and how I judged. And there was a softening of the heart there, between the 3rd and 4th column in resentment inventory, there's a softening of the heart. I saw that forgiveness was more natural. Loving is more natural to me than not. Even my body's complaining when I'm resentful. Everything sucks. My world is small. I'm tight. I have pain in areas of my body. My body is more in tune with the truth than my mind. This is the same mind that told me I could drink like a lady. I never drank like a lady. This is the same mind that told me I'm not going to get to the dealer's house for the 7th time that night. Over and over again. Why would I trust this mind when I walk into recovery to tell me about how to live life? Who I am, who you are, what God is. I mean, come on. I take other people's inventory all the time, but I couldn't take my own. The book lays it out for us so well. I just needed to be willing to take the step. Why was I willing? Because I was dying. I did everything she told me because my life depended on it. No other reason. Not because I liked it, not because I believed in it, not because I thought it would help me, not because I thought I could roll like that. I only did it at that time because my life depended on it. That step 1 experience, man, that's the baseline. That's the structure we built this house on. That's been my experience. Get with step 1. Feel it in every inch of your body. Let it crush you. Grieve. Because when I had that realization, it wasn't one day at a time. It was like, holy smokes, I can never drink again. Never, never. I'm legless. I ain't got legs. I'm never going to walk again. Get with that. I need to find a different way to live. I need a sufficient substitute. And there were these experiences with step 4. I remember just coming out of that 5th step and like floating, floating. I needed and wanted God. I remember that quiet hour. And I remember when I met my sponsor and she asked me to sit quietly for 2 minutes and I was cheating after 30 seconds. I couldn't sit still with myself. That got me curious. Like, I don't even know myself. Like I can't even sit still. I'm like looking at the clock. I'm like restless. The mind wants to think about dinner or what happened yesterday. I have a song I don't even like stuck in my head. All she asked me is to be. Just be here. Just be here. Just sit. Do nothing. Just rest. Be stillness. Be still. Now I see the value of that. Be still and know that I am. Know that I am God. Fill in the blank with whatever your path's been. It's empowering. It's alive. But this is what I wanted to end with. I wanted to end with service. The whole deal is about love and service. The whole deal is about like making myself available and making myself open to be moved and carried by something other than me, right? It's not my life, but the byproduct is I get to enjoy it. I get to have deep, meaningful friendships. I am a girl that did a thesis in philosophy for my college degree, 50 pages on trying to prove that there is no God. I'm a minister. I'm a minister. It's the most important relationship in my life. Like the conversation, it's like never-ending prayer. The dialogue is always present. Whether it's with the spirit, whether it's with the depth of my being, you want to call it God, you want to call it higher power, you want to call it expressions of that power in various religions, whatever you want to call it, the soul, you want to call it that sense presence, whatever you want to call it. We're like designed to be in union with that. And that's when I get to travel lighter through life and meet life on life's terms. And that's how I get to successfully live and be inspired in spirit, come from a place of inspiration. When now, like life is precious, nothing is guaranteed, nothing is promised, and anything is possible. Can you imagine if that's the mantra? Then every day becomes precious and curious, and every emotion is allowed. And in 17 and a half years, my heart's been broken, and I've had fears and medical issues and financial issues and relationship issues, and I've buried my dad who suddenly died, and I wish we had more time. And there's just a way to dance with it that's like just more like all is allowed. And then I sit with a woman and she tells me her 5th step, and it's my 5th step. And I sit with a newcomer and I read the big book, and at 17 years, I discover the depth of a sentence in a big book that I couldn't have seen the value of it until I had certain experiences in sobriety. And then I do more step work and I see 6 and 7 as, putting my big girl pants on and getting to know myself in a deeper way, because now I'm sober for a few years. So when I'm writing inventory, you can't blame it on booze. I can't be like, because I was drunk. What's the mental state that precedes cheating? What's the mental state that precedes skimming off the top and not doing your taxes? What's the mental state that precedes dishonesty and omission? What stories do I believe that try to catch me and reel me in? And I get to work in a sober house where I house 70 newcomers. And after 17 years, I get to see some of them. I get to see the beauty of it and the progression of recovery. I also see the destruction of addiction and alcoholism, because I have people that come to me after 20 years, 25 years, 15 years, 10 years, 18 years. I have people that I housed that were here 10 years ago and they're back at square one. This has been my grace. This has been my path to God. This is spiritual awakening stuff we're talking about. This is about God. This is about getting to know the depth of our being. I can't be more grateful for this path. I am so grateful. I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict. It makes sense now. Nothing else was going to bring me to my knees and open me up, break me open to receive. To receive, and that gratitude that receives it wants to give it. That's the language of the heart. I'm constantly fed. And thank you so much for letting me be with you today.